This is Blacklisted Radio. Welcome to another live edition. My name is Doug Owen. I am the senior editor of blacklistednews.com. You can check out all of the news and articles that we curate and we talk about on the show here, there, as well. You can go to our website, and I highly encourage you to do so at blacklistedradio.com. We have an interactive chat room. We have the accoutrements galore, all free on the house. Thanks to the sponsors and really the listeners, the producers of this show. And you can find a chat room. We have a podcast on YouTube. We're all over the place. So really, if you just type my name or this show name into the search engine of your choice, and you can find us. A lot to get into. Of course, if you want to be part of the show, we do like to, have dialogue, talk with listeners and people that are informed about the topics that we find interesting and talk about on the show. You can do that through the telephone at 800-313-9443. You can also text me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We get all of the texts. They go right into my email. It's very convenient. 512-222-3067. So last week, I guess most of the response to the show was positive. Some of you out there, of course, I think have kind of gone post-political as far as most of the talking points that you hear on the mainstream media feel that they are pretty much conscripted to the point where, and I understand the sentiment, it's almost pointless to talk about the charade, the show that is big politic here in the United States of America and most places probably in the world. The political theatrics. If you ever want to really look into how most of these town hall meetings are staged, there was a great piece on Blacklisted News from Michael Krieger this week. Paid actors, paid speechwriters, a little ditty that came out this week that really does kind of highlight where the political power in this country is and has been for quite some time, is the 1995 State of the Union address for Bill Clinton being written by a former Goldman Sachs executive. Not shocking, not probably mind-altering for most of the listeners, but definitely a case in point where we see who really are the power brokers. So some of you not so respondent to, I guess, or interested in hearing about a lot of political news, although we do have some, and we'll get right into it, and then we'll get into some of the other technocratic things that we have to talk about. If you haven't heard, there's a big announcement today. Wealthy Republicans are planning to run a third-party candidate to stop Donald Trump. This was a red alert from InfoWars that landed in my email box. So, of course, I have to read this because, it's red alert. Anyway, the Republicans are looking at some flunky third-party candidate they can run against Donald Trump to bring his numbers down so that one of the establishment, selectees, Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz, can get the nomination. I do think it's interesting to see how this black horse, and I was interested and thought quite a lot of the Perot run. Some of you did as well. I often quote his big sucking sound, the sound of jobs leaving this country, and how the establishment used Perot. And he had this crazy general vice president that was really, to use a loose term, unelectable. But, to see the Washington power brokers and the machine that they used to derail Ross Perot was effective. And now you have the same people here via Politico that are trying to do this with Donald Trump. Conservative donors have engaged a major GOP consulting firm in Florida to research the feasibility of mounting a late independent run for president amid growing fears that Donald Trump could win the Republican nomination. Now, the fear has been realized, and listening to the latest Jeff Sessions, and even more popular and probably a bigger nod to Donald Trump is his anointment or his approval by Chris Christie, or as I like to call him, Chris Krispy Kreme. That's a fat joke. Sorry, not to be a fattest, but I don't know. I've always thought that people that can't take care of their own bodies, to the point of Chris Christie, I mean, he's pretty obese, and not because he has any physical ailment, not that he has any, thyroid issues or other things that would halt him from being quite as obese. I guess I'm just admitting now that I am a fattest to a certain extent, but I think, well, if you can't really take care of yourself and you have no interest in that, then what interest would you have in taking care of people? It's a bad personal decision to, eat pasta 4 or 5 times a day. People that do that maybe aren't great decision makers. So there you go. I guess that's out there now. But anyway, his endorsement of Donald Trump has the Washington insiders kind of reeling. I mean, this is unprecedented, and I've said it before, in that you have the media machine that is really the political machine, in the sense that most of the money being raised for these candidates is used to pay media. So it's only in its best interest to keep it as interesting and seedy and, view-worthy for the American people. It has to be a show. There is only one show that's going on in the political sphere right now, and that is the 2016 election and some other, back burner stories. Anyway, I thought it was interesting to see this whole breakdown. You have Senator Lindsey Graham, who is a war hawk. He is crazy. He's a crazy, crazy man. He made some pretty quotable quotes this week. Quote, "If you kill Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate and the trial is at the Senate, no one will convict you." He also said that the Republican Party has gone bat-ass crazy, which is kind of apropos considering, the source, Lindsey Graham. There's that out there. So the Republican Party is disintegrating in meltdown mode, and I imagine the DNC is in a similar place, because we all know that Hillary Clinton is the candidate for the establishment. I think even the Republicans would like to see Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, or maybe even Rubio or Cruz, when it comes right down to it. But the seediness, I'm hoping the show gets better. I mean, let's talk about Marco Rubio's ties to the Miami cocaine cartel. Let's talk about Donald Trump working with the mafia. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton. Of course, you're not going to get that necessarily, but mud may start slinging. I mean, if they really, really, really have to derail Donald Trump, there's no telling where that may go. Of course, there's plenty of other things happening around the world, but I have to mention Scalia. The anomalies around his death have become just that much more interesting. Just when you thought, well, yeah, I think a lot of people think that Barack Obama and the left-wing establishment maybe have had him murdered. Plenty of conspiracy theories, plenty of things that have been. I don't know. One of the things that really brings me back to it is to see some of the silliness in the alternative media. Another red alert email I received: Justice Scalia died surrounded by Luciferians. Special report that you can, if you type that title into Google or one of the other search engines, you could probably hear all about. But it does get more and more interesting. Scalia died among members of an Austrian elite society, the International Order of St. Hubertus, or Hubertus, a branch that started in 1966 at the Bohemian Grove. If you're not familiar with the Bohemian Grove, oh man, you should become familiar with the Bohemian Grove. Probably one of the single topics that lured me into searching about secret societies and really conspiracy culture 101. Finding out about the Bohemian Grove was kind of an eye-opener, I think, for me and probably most of you if you've become familiar with it. The Owl, Moloch, and the power elite, financial and political, as well as people in academia, the arts, of course, Hollywood, meet at the Grove with the Owl. They go into the cremation of care, mock sacrifice ritual, or something like that. I'll just put that out there. Something pretty creepy happens out there in the Northern Californian Bohemian Grove, where weird stuff takes place. You could say it's, I hear all sorts of interpretations from some of the secret recordings and things that are available on the internet. Actually, I was able to buy a Bohemian Grove patch on eBay. Pretty neat. I haven't found a hat to wear it, put it on, or an occasion to wear it. But you can get plenty of Bohemian Grove paraphernalia out there on the internet. So anyway, something to look at. The Washington Post reports when Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia died 12 days ago. It's been longer since that, but this is from a few days back. He was among high-ranking members of an exclusive fraternity for hunters called the International Order of St. Hubertus, an Austrian society that dates back to the 1600s. Members of the worldwide male-only wear dark green robes emblazoned with a large cross and the motto Diem Diligate or Diligete and Amelia Diligentes or Gentes, which I know I'm just mangling to pieces here, which means honoring God by honoring his creatures, according to the group's website. Some hold titles such as the Grand Master. Makes me think of, the Ku Klux Klan and other groups like that. You are the Grand Master. You're the Wizard. So you have them, and of course you have the Knight Grand Officer. Other orders names in honor of Hubert, the patron saint of hunters and fishermen. It only gets more interesting. Inside Scalia's very weird secret hunting society, Vocative brought some other details to us. The name Hubertus comes from St. Hubert, the patron saint of various sportsmen, including hunters, fishers, archers, trappers, fur hunters, and dog trainers. I wonder if the dog whisperer, Caesar, was amongst them. Anyway, the original order was created in 1695 by Count Franz Anton von Spork. Yes, that's really what his name, or Sprock, maybe. The son of a military man who inherited the customary bounty bestowed upon Austrian war heroes in the 17th century. Larger tracts of land were confiscated from Protestant Bohemian nobles. And anyway, the Venerable Order of St. Hubertus, as it was called, gathered the greatest noble hunters of the 17th century to enjoy fruits of those Protestant dispositions. And the original order lasted until 1938, when Hermann Goering, that guy, commander of the Nazi Air Force, executed the order's leader when he was denied membership. So this is a story. And Adolf Hitler dissolved the group in response to its unwillingness to admit Nazis at the time. The members who survived World War II used their hunting skills to supply food in rural Austria in the chaotic post-war climate, according to the order's website. Its efforts its efforts were critical in saving Austria from the Nazis. So, pretty interesting. I know, it's easier just to say they're Luciferians, and they were probably, and this probably wouldn't be too far off, but engaged in a gay orgy. Remember what Richard Nixon said about the Grove? He didn't like it. I paraphrase, but he didn't like it because there were lots of homos there. And yeah, there were plenty of them. Plenty of guys with beards. Anyway, just to add to the other weird things, including the pillow over his face or above his head. I've heard that argued. The oddity of where the pillow was placed, not that proves anything, but you also have the family immediately turning down any type of autopsy. You have to wonder, what was happening there, or why they're just uninterested. Do they know something? Is it, and maybe they do something, behind the scenes. Maybe he was, struggling with difficulties, or health-wise. But one of the other things that's pretty interesting, questions are now being raised about his CPAP machine. He had a breathing machine known as CPAP. The U.S. Supreme Court Justice was known for exacting his styles and opinions, the way he labored over each and every word. And I've read some of his jurists. Interesting stuff. I mean, as much as the Republicans talk about Scalia, he didn't save us from Obamacare, the constitutionality of that being. I'm not a Supreme Court justice. I'm not a lawyer. Admittedly, I kind of despise most of them when they're not working in your favor. Obviously, they're good when they're good for you. Kind of like a cop. Cops are great when your stuff was stolen and they find it, or they protect you from an abuser, or any of the other things that cops do that are very merit-worthy. Same thing for lawyers, in my opinion. So there's my opinion on people that are way unmedically out of shape, and people that have breathing machine disorders. Anyway, there's one thing that appeared amiss. A breathing apparatus, a small device called a continuous positive airway pressure machine, was on his nightstand, but unplugged and not turned on. Kind of odd. Does that necessarily mean that the Luciferians assassinated him? Not necessarily, but it does add to all of the other oddities surrounding the Scalia death. And like I said, at first I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, other than first reporting. Really getting ahead of the curve to pat myself on the back with the thanks to Craig Simpson with the Washington Post article highlighting his odd pillow placement over his face, according to the Cibolo Creek owner, who is also a member of several secret orders tied to the Bohemian Grove. But trips weren't a big thing for Scalia. He was actually one of the most expense-paid trips, took the most expense-paid trips of any other Supreme Court member. And, of course, you look at the neutrality of the Supreme Court, and, how neutral can they be? But one of the few ways that they can be bribed and they can be bought is through expensive trips. He took lots of them, free trips all over the place, with a myriad of different groups and probably fraternal orders. But, you look at these groups and how the vetting process for the political elite, it's usually through secret societies and fraternal orders. They're all members of them. Ask Hillary Clinton. She said she goes to the Council on Foreign Relations for her marching orders. Admittedly. All right, guys, quick break. We'll be back with more. Don't go anywhere. It's Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Oh, we got another donation during the break there from Robert. I don't know his location, but he gave us $25, and I want to thank him for that. And you can go to blacklistedradio.com. Plenty of features free on the house, and you can go and easily click the donation button if you'd like to make a contribution to the show. We really greatly appreciate it. We will continue the work, and when you appreciate the show, I mean, when it's important to you, when it's important to the people listening, it's so much more important to me, but it really does give me a new perspective. So I really do appreciate it. All right, so Mercedes swapping robots for people. When human labor becomes so expensive that you have to search for an alternative, and that's what we're having the debate over now, I guess, as to where the future lies for the workforce. I mean, when you look at transportation, you have millions of, I think over 20 million jobs. It might even be 40 million jobs directly related to that in the U.S. And when you look at that as a percentage of working Americans, you're talking about a good percentage, 10 to 15% of the people out there. I mean, if you look at the Uber revolution, really, the disintegrating of old businesses into new ideas. It's great. There's new opportunities for many people in those businesses, but by and large, we've seen these job killers. So it's just more of the trend towards the outsourcing of people. When you look at China, though, so many of the assembly lines that we have for most of our products are still human people. I mean, you have literal slave labor in many countries, and especially in China, where you just have people that are worked to death. They're still cheaper than robots. So as much as I think that the hype about the mechanical and technocratic outsourcing of jobs in the 21st century is a real threat, we also have so many other avenues for cheap labor. That's one of the things I think that scares the hell out of the establishment. Things that would really hurt the idea of neoliberalism, globalization, aka your new world order, and that's Donald Trump's plan to bring back tariffs. Tariffs are, they're tried and true. When you look at the only way that you can effectively bring some kind of equilibrium between countries that are exploiting slave labor and corporations, of course, they're exploiting that labor, it's to bring back tariffs. Putting a 35% tariff on Mexico would be a huge, huge boon for the U.S. economy. Real jobs, not paper money, paper tigers, that type of, looking at it. It's a really myopic look at, Wall Street. Well, the Dow's up, Doug. See, the economy's doing well. I mean, I'm talking about on Main Street, reemploying people in places like Hershey, Pennsylvania. Now the Hershey plan, along with countless other automakers and other factories, are going to Mexico. If they had to pay a 35% tariff on those products, beyond luxury items. I mean, sure, most economists would say that, there's things like my favorite passion, premium hand-rolled cigars that come from places that, you just don't have the market, nor do you have the ability, really, or the want in the U.S. to grow premium tobacco. So you have things outside of that would be heavily taxed. Those jobs, those factories, they would all come right back to the United States. They'd be economically incentivized to do business in this country and not in other places. Sounds great. Sounds like a clear-cut winner to bring this country back. And as he says, the proverbial now, making America great again. But what is the cost? Can't have prosper on one side without a little pestilence, the adverse on the other, and that would be that jobs that are going to Mexico. Mind you, not great jobs, but decent jobs comparatively for Mexican citizens would all but eviscerate. I mean, they would be gone. Now, if you look at the current situation in Mexico, it's not great. It's not great at all for the average citizen. And you can blame that on socialism, the nationalization of. Basically, you have a socialist country that's only supported by its neighbor, the U.S., and the exploitation of resources and a downtrodden population, a disarmed population. So, would there be consequences? Absolutely. There would be consequences. That's why you need that big wall that Mr. Trump's talking about. Now, because those people would be coming here again. We've actually seen a downward trend in illegal immigration where people are going back to Mexico in numbers higher than coming to this country. I don't know if you can believe those numbers, but that's what's being purported out there, is that we see this decline in illegal immigration because, hey, it's cost a lot to live here. You can go to New York City and live in a 362 square foot apartment for $3,000. Not everybody's cup of tea. So those jobs would, they would vanish. Now, if we had a true free market and we had a government that was not corrupt through and through, you would probably see more jobs and more prosperity in that country. No doubt about it. But you would have issues. And that is the problem, and I guess the good side of globalization all in one. By having free, unabated, crony trade with other countries, it does create jobs. It does do some of the things that people highlight as to why we need a new world order. It brings people in poverty into industrialized nations, and they industrialize, and the thought is that at some point, just like this country that was built on slave labor, child labor, and the machine that was America, that these countries too will rise out of that poverty. You look at what's happening in China; that's a highlight of what will happen. And you hear these people, they talk about it, and I don't mean to laugh, but 35, 40 years from now, maybe China will be as prosperous and democratic as the United States. I don't think so. That's why I am not a fan nor a proponent of the New World Order. And I am a proponent of tariffs and other things that would bring equilibrium back to the U.S. economy, or at least allow people that make a living wage to be able to compete in a global market. Sorry, unabated free markets are anything but. And so when you look at government in general, crises day to day, everything is insane. You have to have government protect you, or the world's going to fall apart. You're going to get the Zika virus or whatever it is this week that's, the impending doom. It's pretty revolutionary to think, well, what should the government do? And there's very few people other than real libertarians and the like that would say, well, it's not government's job. Government should do absolutely nothing. Nothing. And so here we go towards this new revolution in industry, technology, and computing. Speaking of which, if you haven't heard about Google Planet, it's pretty scary. They've just unveiled their neural network with quote-unquote superhuman ability to determine the location of almost any image. I was reading through this. MIT had a pretty interesting write-up on some of the technology as well as tech dirt, but basically it changes everything. They now have learning machines. And if you're not familiar with the term, most people probably aren't, but in a nutshell, they were able to put 2.3 million geographically tagged images into this system called Planet from Flickr, and it was able to actually determine the origin, country, location of about 28.4% of these photos. And it doesn't seem like a huge thing. Most people think that the government and the computers can, read everything. And that's been a fear of most of us, is that, this beast machine expands to this point to where you have cognitive awareness, neural awareness, where everything is being fed into this huge matrix / threat matrix. Because as cool as it sounds and as handy as it is, you have to look at the military aspect of all of this technology. And so, anyway, on we go to a place where almost any photo you take can and will be able to be located, whether you're in a large city or a remote, town somewhere in Americana. And, I think a lot of the tech debate, the security debate, has surrounded the FBI, the Department of Justice, leaning on Apple to create a backdoor or to crack one of the San Bernardino terrorists' iPhones. And really, they've reframed and restaged the debate. I mean, if you go back to WikiLeaks, we're not talking about the PRISM project anymore, where the NSA admittedly had backdoors into the workings of Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft. If anything, I think, in my opinion, that this is a push towards getting some kind of retroactive legislation to where government makes it legal for companies like Apple to give that information that was once secretly stolen from them under the PRISM program, which was, at the time, a highly classified project that was brought to light by Edward Snowden. Anyway, so it's important to realize how far from that we have come when the debate surrounds whether or not Apple will unlock this one phone. It's a phony debate. It's a new staged narrative, if you will, and it highlights, or rather, it hides, it obfuscates the real backdoor workings between companies like Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, and the like. I mean, you had Bill Gates come out and say, well, I think Apple should do it. Why? Because Bill Gates has been doing it with, I think, Microsoft, was it 3.1? I mean, back towards the late 1990s, admittedly, Bill Gates was giving the NSA backdoors into his operating system. So, I mean, if you make it legal, if you reframe this, it seems like, well, I mean, Apple's the good guy here. But don't be fooled for one moment to think that almost all of the information on your phone, it is transmitted. What's on my phone? Pictures. Most of those have been transmitted. Very few have not been. They've either gone to Instagram, other friends, my mom, pictures of my son, things like that. I mean, most of the information that Americans keep in their phone, most of the financial records, or even your medical records, if you do have them on your phone, maybe you have some reason to keep PDFs and files like that on your phone. Most of those have been transmitted as well through one of the telecommunications companies. Likewise with, just about any social media app that you're using. I mean, all that is at Facebook or Twitter, wherever it may be. So the significance of the information stored on the phone, browsing history, I mean, all of those things were done through ISPs, all of which the NSA admittedly has backdoors into, and even telecommunication hub rooms in some of these companies themselves. So, reframing it to seem like Apple's the good guy. Of course, looking at where we're going, I guess, I saw this, and these are the things that make my hair on my neck stand up. U.S. military successfully installs brain modems in animals. Need I say more? DARPA hailed by Dick Cheney as one of the most important agencies of the DOD, has now implanted chips in blood vessels that lodge themselves inside of the brain and record neural activity. Yeah, I mean, we're there. Scientists have also made a huge leap, and they're actually able to, according to the Nanjing Medical University in China, maybe, I mean, I don't know how much I trust out of China just because I'm a skeptic, but they're saying now that they've been able to impregnate with their artificial sperm. And I saw this article and I said, well, this is, I guess, good news and scary news and bad news, considering the Telegraph just had a huge story that didn't hear anything about here in the U.S. This huge study found that sperm levels of men who kept their phones in their pocket during the day were quite seriously affected in 47% of cases. That basically, in a nutshell, it's cooking your sperm. By having your cell phone in your pocket as little as 1 hour a day, and who doesn't, it could be cooking your sperm. Now, for me, I'm not too worried about it. I don't need the sperm anymore. But for some of you millennials, even other Gen Xers, people in my age demographic that want to have children, I mean, who was it? Was it, I think it was James Clapper, head of the FBI, or maybe, Clapper. He's the FBI head. He said, well, you want to be able to be anonymous. You want complete, privacy from the government, and I would go ahead and include private corporations that are, tracking and tracing your every move. Just get rid of your phone. And, obviously for people that are in love with technology, they want that. They want to feel that they can have this device. They can have this. It's quite a device, the cell phone, and it be safe. I think Clapper's on the money. That's probably the only way you'll ever have true privacy anymore. All right, guys, quick break, and then we'll roll into the final segment. Still time for you, 800-313-9443. It is Blacklisted Radio. Oh, what a world we live in. Welcome back. It's the final segment of Blacklisted Radio. Thank you for listening to the show, supporting it in all the ways that all of you do. I really do appreciate it. And we're talking about, technology, the pros and cons. It's great to be able to find locations to the Cedar Park. What was it? The Cedar Park Dinosaur Park that we went to this weekend with my son. And boy, was he excited about it. And I don't think I would have found it without my handy Google map that was tracking and tracing me right down to the damn dinosaur park. You think about it, and as Clapper said before, I mentioned, you really cannot have an expectation of privacy in the digital world. And that's fine for me, because there's certain things that I put on computers. There's certain things that I tell my doctor. There's certain things that I don't, and it's because I truly want privacy. There's certain things I would say in front of my laptop, and there's certain things I would not say in front of the laptop. There's certain, risque outfits or lack thereof that I would wear in front of a camera, and others that I wouldn't. I would never buy a smart TV that is listening to me, although I do have a smart TV that doesn't have a microphone input, and I'm aware of those things, and you should be as well. Those are the choices that we make to support our lifestyles. You have to have a cell phone today for many jobs. So that's a give and take, and that's really where the battle lies when it comes to technology. All right, so how much are you willing to give? How much are you willing to not give? Anyway, Kerry's plan B for Syria equals Brookings Institute Brzezinski plan. If you haven't been paying attention, the Syrian crisis is unfolding in new and interesting ways, and is what some of us would affectionately call the roadmap, the pathway to World War III. Anyway, if you didn't catch it, you didn't miss much. The U.S. Senate Committee, in testimony regarding Syria's ceasefire, Kerry didn't express much optimism for the success of the plan. However, since no informed observer has any real hope for any kind of success of ceasefire, doesn't make much sense. We have a U.S. versus U.S. proxy war playing out. You have DOD and CIA funded groups, moderates, whatever you like to call them, that are actually killing one another. You have the U.S. funding the Kurds, financing and arming Kurds, and you have the Turkish government killing Turds. Did I say turds? I didn't mean that. I'm sorry, Kurds. And that's the way they feel about them. It's kind of the Freudian slip. That's how Turkey feels about the PKK. Nonetheless, it's turned into a quagmire. So now, and there is, I guess, a debate to be had about the what Zygmunt Brzezinski affectionately calls microstates and mini-states. In other words, he has a plan. The new plan is basically creating tons of small countries inside, a breaking up of Syria and other countries along there into microstates that would have almost no political power in the UN and, of course, in the New World Order. Interesting plan. All right, guys, thanks so much for supporting the show. I'll put the show notes and the post-produced podcast up maybe tonight or as soon as tomorrow. And everybody have a great week. We'll come back next week and do this thing again. Plenty of stuff will be on the table. And, of course, your thoughts are always welcome. Hit us up at blacklistedradio.com. And until next week, take care.